It may have sounded like an overstatement, but 5 years on, it's turned out to be true. The world really did change forever that day in September 2001. And not only in the most obvious ways. The war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, the so-called war on terror. In many subtle ways, all our lives have been affected. For what? The terrorists still strike. Innocent civilians still die. Osama bin Laden still free, ready to strike again at any time. No wonder Liz Hayes found bitterness and anger among the survivors of 9/11. That, and an almost overpowering sense of resilience and courage.
Something that has happened here.
Looks like a plane hit it or something.
I can still visualise what I saw that day, the explosion of the North Tower, which happened right in front of my face. The memories that I have are still strong. Probably not a day passes where I don't think about what happened that day.
At least some windows are blown out and
just flew into
the explosion is incredible.
This is pretty much where I came out of the building, and there was stuff falling from above. The two towers were burning. There were body parts all over the road. I mean, not nice memories, but that's what we saw. That's the street that I went up and pretty much came out of the buildings here and turned around and had no idea what was going on.
Returning to ground zero is very difficult for James Dorney.
My friends whose names are up there, I reckon they'd be glad I came back. I said if I start crying I might never stop, so I'll just make sure I don't.
On September 11th, 2001, he was a young Australian banker working on the 92nd floor of the South Tower in the World Trade Center. He was at his desk when the first plane hit the tower next door and was in a stairwell trying to get out when the second plane ploughed into his building. 200 of his workmates perished that day.
I do realise that the odds were against me, and I was faced with many choices that day, and I'd have to say I made all the right choices, and that was very lucky, because I don't think I'd be here talking to you if I hadn't made some of those choices.
Nearly 3,000 people died that day in an area covering just a couple of city blocks. I've been to New York and seen this huge gap in the skyline many times since, but I still struggle to comprehend the enormity of it all and what it must have been like for those who were there. The people of New York are still recovering, but it's clear they're now asking a lot of questions, not the least being whether or not this could happen again.
I'm still bitter. I'm still bitter. I want some answers, and I can't find some answers.
Louis Caccioli was a fireman, and like many of the survivors of September 11, he's disillusioned.
They're not doing their job. Somebody dropped the ball here, okay? And it's time for us to wake up. We're at war, okay? This is not a game of chess. This is war we're at, okay? And there's lives involved, okay? And it's time for us to wake up.
Fire post, Tower 1. All units, evacuate the building.
Louis was a firefighter of some 20 years' experience. On the day of the attack, he raced into the first tower and helped evacuate panicked workers inside. He got out, only to be buried in rubble as the second tower collapsed. Louis survived, but that day, 343 of his colleagues did not. When you look at these faces, many emotions, I imagine.
Absolutely. When I look at this, I wonder that I should have been up there.
5 years on, Louis is retired and suffers lung and eye damage as well as post-traumatic stress. And he lives with the fear that it could happen again.
Everywhere you go, everybody, you go into a subway, you go into a tunnel, you go on a plane, okay? Everybody's got that fear in them. Is something gonna happen today, you know?
The whole building's gone.
We've now been waging a war on terror since September 2001, the results of which, so far, seem to offer little encouragement.
From my perspective, I think the world we're living in now is really one that the enemy has a much surer grip on reality than we do.
For 22 years, Michael Schur worked for the CIA and was on the hunt for Osama bin Laden long before the attacks on the Twin Towers. Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, he says, are a focused and formidable enemy.
They have a very firm grip on what they're mad at, what they're going to do about it, and why they're going to do it.
And we don't.
We have none. From your Prime Minister to the Prime Minister of Britain to the President of the United States to the leader of the Democratic Party, they have not a clue about what they're going to do. Every one of these men, when something happens, say we're going to arrest them one man at a time. You know, we'll bring them to justice. Well, that sounds good, but it should be 5 years after 9/11 apparent that it's an impossible task.
There have now been 23 major terrorist attacks since September 11. Among them, the 2 Bali bombings that claimed 220 lives. Spain with 190 dead, and the London blasts, which killed 50 commuters. And all of these have been influenced by one man. Bin Laden was the face of the enemy.
Yes.
Is he still the face of the enemy?
I think he is still the face of the enemy. He's a remarkable man. I catch a lot of flack, but in many ways, he's a great man in the sense that he's affected history.
Well, see, people would find it shocking to hear you say that he's a great man.
He is a man that has to be understood and respected, not because he's a good guy or because we should be empathetic, but the better you understand someone, the better you can annihilate them if you need to.
He needs to be captured. You know.
Why do you need to capture him? If you know that capturing him's not going to change anything.
Because he's the face that tried to kill me that day.
Pasquale Buzzelli, an engineer, was working on the 64th floor of the North Tower when the first plane hit.
He tried to kill me, basically. You know, I'm not a soldier. I'm a civilian. So, you know, I know there's a much bigger picture, a much more political picture and everything. But to me, that would be a tremendous satisfaction to know that we can go out there and get him.
Pasquale's story is one of the most remarkable to emerge from September 11. He was in a stairwell when the entire North Tower collapsed, bringing with it more than 1 million tons of concrete and steel. Somehow, Pasquale survived, landing in the mountain of rubble below. Unconscious for 3 hours, he was finally rescued. One of only 20 people found alive in the ruins. We first met him not long after the tragedy.
I never thought I'd make it out of there. I actually said to myself, you know, in that split second, I can't believe that this is how I'm gonna die. You know, this is it.
Thank you. Wow.
Since 9/11, Pasquale and his wife Louise have had 2 children, Hope and Mia. But their joy at being parents is tempered by fear of what the future holds.
Delicious, Mia. See that? Now you're thinking, well, you want, you know, just some explanation of why things happened and why did it happen? Why did this person try to kill me? And why is it still going on in the world and it's not stopping? There's no answers. That's the problem I have, you know. And I've come to the realization that there probably won't be any closure to it, you know. And that's and you kind of go on and you accept that there's a different way of life now.
One of the indelible images of September 11 was this photo of Marcy Borders emerging covered in dust from the carnage. It came to symbolise the Twin Towers tragedy.
Just so tired of crying.
When we met Marcy 6 months after the attacks, she was an emotional wreck, still traumatised, having escaped from the 81st floor of the South Tower. The tears have subsided, but Marcy's world has barely changed.
I haven't done much, still not working, still haven't been back to New York. I don't know, just sit at home. Like, it was like slowly just killing me, just, the ways I was trying to regroup and get over it, but I'm trying a new path and I feel better.
All the survivors I've spoken to all say the same thing. They want answers.
Yeah, but we're the poor little people. We don't get answers. I've written to the White House.
You've written to George Bush?
Yeah, and his response was, go sign up for welfare.
What did you say in your letter?
Never experiencing a terrorist situation. How does one get over this? What does one do? What is the next step, He didn't give me any answers.
Have you still got the clothes?
Yes.
Why do you keep them?
I keep them because that outfit was the outfit of the last day and the first day of my life,
Louis Caccioli also kept the clothes he wore that day.
Still in my garage, and I look at it almost every day.
What does that suit represent to you?
It represents my whole life, what I did, my career, and also it's stained. It's got blood stain on it from down there. For the numerous days that I was down there digging.
The horror of the September 11 attacks has robbed so much from all its victims. None will ever be the same. And 5 years on, few would argue the world is a safer place. Another attack is likely.
Yes, and I think the reason we haven't seen one yet is simply because they're not ready to do it.
Oh, okay, so we haven't stopped them. They're just not ready yet.
I don't think they're ready, and I also think they don't need to be from their view, they don't need to be in any hurry.
It seems you're saying we have good reason to be frightened.
We have a very good reason to be frightened, yes. We face a very, very talented man at the head of a movement that is increasing in strength and geographical reach and anger.
I love the city, but it holds some terrible memories. But I think it's something that it's probably good that I've done to come back again after 5 years and hopefully put one or two more demons to rest.
Like all those at Ground Zero on September 11, James Dorney was a witness to the day the world changed. At times, coming to terms with what happened has been hard, but James refuses to surrender any more of his life. That, he says, would be giving too much to the terrorists.
I think it's important to not allow ourselves to become victims of it. And it's with a certain sense of pride that I do still fly, and I do still go up tall buildings, and I won't let it worry me.
Life is good now?
Yeah, it's I'm doing okay. Doing okay.
Hello, I'm Liz Hayes. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9 Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.